show, of course, we had to drag our next guest back in. We had him in last week. We got him in because we ran out of time to get to some of the really important stuff because we thought we'd covered the really important stuff. Then we realised he still had a lot more to talk about, Greg Quinn. Thanks for coming back, mate.
No worries, Phil.
One of the things we wanted to touch on was your dad, of course, a legendary bloke. I was very fortunate to work with Russell Ebert, got to know Russ really well, and he always spoke with a great fondness about your dad, and not a lot of people knew the relationship between Russ and Bob, did they?
No, there was a close bond towards the end of Dad's life. Russell would visit my father in the war vets quite regularly, and my sisters, who would go up and see Dad, they'd walk in the room and there's Russell Ebert in Dad's room, and Dad had dementia towards the end of it, and we used to always sometimes say to Russell, "What's Dad been talking about?" But Russell was a big part of Dad's life towards the end of his life. He was just a wonderful person.
Yeah. For those of you who are unaware, I mean, your dad, Bobby Quinn, is obviously a legend at Port Adelaide. He had the stand named after him, where the precinct now sits and whatever. Won a Magarey, went away to war, won a military medal, came back and won a Magarey medal. But which is quite staggering, really, given the injuries that he suffered in the war and being told that he may never play again. That's a story that I love. One of the great stories of Bob Quinn. You want to elaborate on that for me?
Dad was in Tobruk at the time and surrounded the Germans out the front and Tobruk Harbour at the back, and they had to break through this barbed wire, and it was a long pipe. There's a certain name, I can't just recall the name of this pipe bomb, and anyway, they had to put it through the barbed wire and exploded it, and it pulled the barbed wire apart, and then the troops could go through. Well, Dad's mission was to break this barbed wire, and I think out of his squad there were 15 or so, 2 or 3 of them got out. Dad took the last run for the bomb, grenades flying. Anyway, the bomb went off and they broke the barbed wire, got through, but Dad got seriously wounded in his leg, shrapnel wound in his leg, taken away from the field back out to the hospital. Dr. Rowan, I think his name was, got Dad on the operating table, somehow found out that Dad was a footballer, and virtually Dad was begging him not to cut his leg off, and anyways, didn't cut his leg off, and time went on, got repatriated out of it, went to New Guinea, got wounded twice more in New Guinea, came back home, played footy again. Why he would want to do that, I don't know. Played for the state in this particular year after the war. I think it was at Carlton. I'm not sure whether it was at Carlton or MCG. South Australia versus Victoria.
Yeah.
After the game, knock on the door. The doorman in those days, yes, what do you want, sir? This guy standing there, big, well-dressed man. My name's Dr. Rowan, and I just wondered if I could see Bob Quinn. Well, what had happened was Dr. Rowan had seen the budget the day before and seen South Australia RB Quinn captain, and he said, surely it can't be the same bloke that I operated on the war, and came in, and the bloke said, Bob, there's someone to see, and who the bloody hell's he, and after a Victorian game, so then he comes and the doctor said to Dad, you probably don't remember me, and Dad, who was a great one for pointing, he said, I remember you, Doctor, and he said, I couldn't believe that after the injuries that this was happening. He said, now, Quinn, get up on that table and pull your pants down because I want to have a look at my handiwork. And Dad got up on the table and he looked at the wound, which was a considerable wound.
It was
and he said, I did a good job, didn't I? He said, you not only saved my life, but saved my leg and my football.
Yeah, because I know he said, I just remember him, the story coming out and saying, listen, you're not taking my leg.
Yeah, don't cut my leg off.
I've heard the story.
It's just incredible. It's an incredible story. But even later in life, an absolute character, Bob Quinn.
Yep.
We had Bob at a luncheon, I do remember, at Alberton, and very late in his life, where you wouldn't think it, he was mobbed. He was like a rock star. It was just incredible. It really was incredible. Yeah. But he never really he didn't enjoy being old. He didn't enjoy nursing homes. No. He wasn't happy there, was he?
No, he wasn't. We put him into a beautiful home up in Ferguson Terrace, and veterans home, wonderful place. And he was an ex-publican, so he loved people, and obviously football. I loved people being around him, and we got him into this beautiful place. And my sisters were just angels towards him. Pam and Marg were just lovely, and my brother was there. And anyway, so we left him this particular day. Well, we get the phone call that he's got out, so he's walked out of the nurse's home anyway. So the police got him, brought him back in. So the next couple of days, well, sure enough, he's gone again. But before he went out the second time, he gathered all the not inmates, but the people that were, his people in the nursing home. And the story goes that he had them in a circle, and he's in the middle, and he's talking to them, said, I know how we're all going to get out in here. You all need to follow me when I do. So what he used to do was watch the nurses do the code on the door. And he was going to take the whole lot of them out. He was going to
take the folks out for a wander.
Unbelievable. And we figured that it was in his mind that he was still coaching, and he was still, so he got them all around. He's in the middle.
It's the team, man. At least he's taking the team with him.
Taking the team with him, yeah. So it wasn't funny at the time, but it's a funny story now. That was my dad.
It's a fascinating story.
It's interesting you say that. Close on with that was my dad.
Yep.
You know how we sit here in awe of Bob Quinn, and if you talk to people, it's mythical. He's a mythical man. These things in the war that you talk about, and that. Yet you go, yeah, but he's just my dad.
Yeah.
Is it like that, mate? I mean, you're aware of what he's accomplished, but he's just my dad.
Yeah, I am, Phil. I can't. I've always said the interviews that I've done, it's very difficult talking about your own.
Yes.
But my dad was my father, my boss at work, and a true loyal father to me through my sport. The things that he did at war, I'm sure there were some things that happened at war that he didn't like at all. But he never brought that home, and he was that sort of a person that would be a father. He wouldn't swear in front of his daughters, and wouldn't swear well, sometimes he swore at Robert and myself, but he was that, and that's just it. He was my dad. I can't help what he did in the past. It just so happens that he's my father, and we're here now to, not to glorify him, he would hate that.
No,
he would hate
about achievements. But knowledge is achievements.
Wonderful achievements. And he very rarely talked about it, Phil. He very rarely talked about the war, and but of course, just about every day there was someone come in the Southwark Hotel and talk to Dad about football. Something. There was something.
But
constant.
You walk into a room with him and there's an aura about him.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you don't get caught in the aura. He's my dad.
My dad.
What's all the fuss about? What's
Very,
going on here? And it's not until he's gone that you start to go, I kind of feel that a little bit now. I understand.
I could count on one hand the amount of times I kicked the football with my father. Simply because he's a publican and didn't have time. I was always.
So how'd you get into cricket then? From footy to cricket?
Well, my mother's brother was C.W. Walker, who toured England twice with the Australian team, and in those days it was just footy and cricket and wicket keeping. I read about Uncle Charlie, and I thought I might like to try and do that, and that's what happened. And then I stopped playing footy when I was 26. I don't know how, but I was in the state squad, so I stopped playing cricket, and I stopped playing football, and then took on cricket, and I stopped footy at 26, and that was it. And
you did it well, mate.
Yeah, I just carried on.
Very well.
Bob Quinn,
terrific player.
Walker, Greg Quinn, and they've all got an Australian blazer.
Yeah.
So you're in the group, mate.
My mum played state netball too.
There we go. The genes were great, mate.
It's got to come out somewhere.
It has to, mate. You've had an unbelievable career, mate. I don't care what you say to retire at 67, mate, and do what you've accomplished. Bloody fantastic, mate. Really enjoyed you spending time with us. Appreciate you coming in, mate.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Greg Quinn, our special guest. Stay with us.